My name is Sofia Martinez, and I'm in my mid 30s. By day, I'm a software developer at a mid sized firm, the kind of job that doesn't make headlines but pays the bills. By night, I run a small freelance business app systems custom solutions that has been slowly but steadily gaining traction. Nothing flashy, nothing glamorous. Just me, my laptop, and the quiet rhythm of progress. For a long time, I believed that was enough. That stability and loyalty were what people valued most in a partner. Then I met Daniel. We crossed paths at a networking event 2 years ago, a gathering for tech and marketing professionals. He wasn't like the usual people I had met. Daniel had a spark, the kind of easy charm that pulled people into his orbit. He laughed loudly, spoke with his hands, and made you feel like you were the only one in the room. I was drawn to him instantly. He was ambitious, or at least he talked like he was. Big plans about climbing the corporate ladder, launching his own brand one day, being the kind of success story that others envied. I admired that energy. So when he leaned in and told me he liked my quiet confidence, I let him in. From the beginning, I was all in. When he lost a contract, I covered rent without a second thought. When his freelance clients ghosted him, I picked up extra projects to make sure the light stayed on. I cooked meals, proofread his resumes, rehearsed mock interviews with him late at night. And when he landed a new role, I celebrated like it was my own victory. But looking back now, I see the cracks that had been there from the start. The ghost of someone else hung over us. Tom, my ex from college, Daniel brought him up far too often for my comfort. At first, it seemed harmless, just casual mentions. Tom had started a tech company right after graduation, the kind of bold leap Daniel admired. That's what real drive looks like, Daniel would say. Almost wistful. But over time, those casual comments sharpened into comparisons. One night, I just signed a promising freelance contract. Steady work for the next 6 months. We were curled up on the couch, dinner plates on the coffee table, the glow of the TV painting our apartment in soft light. I was buzzing with excitement. Daniel, this could be the start of something big, I said, scrolling through emails. If I deliver well, they might refer me to their partners. This could scale. I expected a smile, maybe a toast with the cheap wine I'd bought. Instead, Daniel leaned back, eyes glued to his phone. You know, Tom didn't waste time with side gigs like this. He just went for it, started his company from scratch, and made it happen. The words sank heavy in my chest. I put my glass down. Daniel, this isn't nothing. It's progress. Stability matters too. He shrugged, still scrolling. Yeah, I guess. But Tom, he actually achieved something. That twist in my gut, I brushed it off, tried to convince myself it was just his way of pushing me to aim higher. But the truth, he wasn't pushing me forward. He was pulling me down, tethering my worth to a ghost from my past. It wasn't just that night. Months earlier, I dipped into my savings to surprise him with a weekend getaway in the mountains. A cozy cabin firewood stacked high, 2 days away from the noise of city life. We'd been eating breakfast by the window, the winter sun spilling across the table. It should have been perfect, but Daniel, knife hovering over his toast, smiled wistfully. Tom used to surprise you with trips, right? Paris, wasn't it? I remember you told me once. I forced a smile. Yes, but that was years ago. We're here now. That's what matters. He laughed, but it wasn't kind. Sure, you're sweet, Sophia, but sometimes I wonder if you settled too soon. Tom's out there making waves, living big. I stirred my coffee slowly, pretending his words didn't slice through me. Settle too soon. That phrase lodged itself deep in my chest. I'd made sacrifices for him, turned down a remote job offer in San Francisco so we could stay close to his networking opportunities. I'd rearranged my life around his instability, telling myself it was love, partnership, commitment. And still I was painted as the one who lacked ambition. There were nights I lay awake staring at the ceiling, wondering, am I holding him back? Am I the reason he feels small? But every morning I got up and chose him anyway, because that's who I was, the steady one, the believer, the partner who stayed. The irony, he even encouraged me once to reconnect with old friends. If reaching out helps you close that chapter, go for it, he said. I thought it was a sign of trust that he wanted me to heal from the past. Now I see it for what it was, an open invitation for him to idolize Tom, to hold me against a standard I could never meet. By the time our 2-year anniversary rolled around, the comparisons had become constant. At dinner with friends, he'd smirk and say, Sophia's great, but Tom's killing it in Silicon Valley. Did you see his new Tesla? The table would fall into uncomfortable silence. Mutual friends shifting in their seats. I'd smile tightly, change the subject, pretend it didn't matter. Inside, though, it ate me alive. I wasn't just Daniel's partner, I was his placeholder, the consolation prize, to the man he idolized. The resentment festered quietly like a storm gathering just beyond the horizon, and deep down I already knew storms always break. It was a Friday night when everything came crashing down. I'd spent the whole week buzzing with excitement. A major freelance deal had just landed in my lap. Steady work, good money, and the first real glimpse that my side business could become something bigger. For the first time in years, I allowed myself to imagine maybe I could leave the 9 to 5 behind, build something of my own. To celebrate, I cooked Daniel's favorite meal, pasta with creamy sauce garlic bread, warm from the oven, and a bottle of wine I'd been saving. I lit candles, set the table, even put on the playlist we'd listened to when we first started dating. By the time he walked in, I was practically glowing with anticipation. But the moment I saw his face, my stomach sank. He wasn't smiling. His eyes looked distant, almost smug. Still, I pushed the doubt down. "Dinner's ready," I said brightly, guiding him to the table. We ate in silence for a few minutes, the clink of cutlery filling the space where conversation should have been. I finally broke it, unable to hold it in. "I signed the contract today," I said, barely containing my excitement. "It could be the start of something huge. If it goes well, they might bring me on for bigger projects. I'm thinking maybe even expanding hiring help down the line." I looked at him, waiting for his eyes to light up. Instead, he set his fork down slowly. "Sophia," he said flatly, "we need to talk." My heart skipped. That phrase never ends well. "What's going on?" I asked, my voice careful. He leaned back in his chair, arms crossed like he was about to deliver a lecture. "I've been thinking a lot lately about us, about my life, and I realized I made a mistake choosing you." The words hit like a slap. "A mistake?" My fork froze midair. He nodded, his expression maddeningly calm. "Yeah, I thought I wanted stability, but what I really want is achievement, drive, ambition. Tom has that. He's built things, lived big. You're just comfortable." I stared at him, the room tilting. "Daniel, I've supported you through everything. I've covered bills, stayed up late, helping you prep for interviews, sacrificed my own opportunities so you could have yours, and you call that just comfortable." He waved a hand, dismissing me like I was background noise. "Support is nice, Sophia, but it's not enough. I reconnected with Tom a few weeks ago, Myas. He reached out, said he missed what we had, and honestly, comparing you to him, it's no contest." I swallowed hard, my chest tightening. "You reconnected with Tom while I was working late nights building something for us." His tone turned defensive, then arrogant. He messaged me first, and talking to him, it reminded me of what I've been missing. "You're safe, Sophia, like a security blanket, but Tom challenges me. He's got that spark. I deserve someone who's already made it, not someone still figuring it out." The room seemed to spin. "All those times I put you first," I whispered. "The vacations I paid for, the rent, I covered the chances I gave up so we could stay close to your work. Was that meaningless to you?" He actually smirked. "Exactly. It was sweet but boring. Tom's life is exciting. He's successful. You're just here, and I don't want to settle." Tears stung the corners of my eyes, but I refused to let them fall. "And what about us? The plans we made?" "Plans change, he said coldly. "I've already told Tom yes. We're giving it another shot. You can stay here tonight, but I think it's best if you start looking for a new place." No remorse, no hesitation, just dismissal as if I were an outdated app he decided to uninstall. I sat in silence for a long moment, the candles flickering between us. Finally, I nodded. "If that's what you want." He looked almost disappointed that I didn't argue. Didn't beg. No fight, no, "Please don't go." Wow, maybe I was right about you lacking passion. I pushed my chair back and stood. My voice was steady even as my insides trembled. "Passion isn't screaming, Daniel. Good luck with Tom." That night I lay on the couch numb. He scrolled through his phone in the bedroom, already gone in spirit. I told myself not to look, but I couldn't resist. I checked his social media and there it was, a freshly posted photo of him and Tom. an old shot from their college days now recycled as a victory lap. The caption, "Getting back with the one who got away. Sometimes you have to circle back to find your future. Second chances, true love." The likes poured in, comments too. So happy for you guys. Finally, the dream team back together. Each notification felt like another knife twisting in my chest. Public humiliation as if I'd been nothing more than a temporary placeholder until he could crawl back to the fantasy he worshipped. The next morning, I didn't yell. I didn't beg. I didn't even ask why. I just started packing. He watched from the kitchen, sipping coffee casually as if nothing was happening. "You're really just going?" he asked, feigning surprise. "Yeah," I said, folding my clothes neatly into a duffel. "You made your choice! No fight, no tears. Wow, guess I was right about you." I zipped the bag, slung it over my shoulder, and met his gaze one last time. Good luck with Tom, and then I walked out. No breakdown, no second glance, just silence. It wasn't strength. I was shattered inside, but it was dignity, and that was all I had left. The first nights alone were the hardest. I crashed on a friend's couch, clutching my laptop like it was a lifeline. I didn't tell anyone the details, just said Daniel and I had split. The truth was too raw, too humiliating. When the silence hit, the question started. Why wasn't I enough? Was I really just boring? Did I waste years of my life propping up someone who never valued me? The thoughts looped endlessly, keeping me awake at night. So I did something I hadn't done in years. I called a therapist. In our first session, the words spilled out like a flood. He made me feel like a placeholder, like my study wasn't worth anything compared to someone else's chaos. The therapist listened quietly, then nodded. "Sophia, that says more about him than it does about you." That line lodged itself in my mind. For the first time in weeks, I felt a flicker of clarity. I wasn't broken. I wasn't boring. I was just loyal to someone who mistook stability for weakness. From that point forward, I made a decision. I wouldn't waste another ounce of energy proving my worth to someone who had already discarded me. Instead, I would invest in myself. I threw myself into work. My freelance contract became the cornerstone of something bigger. Nights once spent waiting for Daniel to come home were now dedicated to coding, drafting pitches, building prototypes. The hours were long, but they didn't drain me the way he had. For the first time, my energy was feeding me, not someone else's fragile ego. I also reclaimed the parts of myself I had abandoned. I joined a gym not to reinvent my body for someone else's approval, but to feel strong again. I dusted off my hiking boots and spent weekends on mountain trails, filling my lungs with fresh air instead of stale arguments. And slowly, painfully, I started to heal. Meanwhile, Daniel and Tom were parading their love story across social media. My friends sent me screenshots even though I told them not to. Photos of them clinking champagne glasses with hashtags like Power Couple and Dream Team. Videos of them at flashy parties. Daniel's smile wide, but his eyes just a little too glassy. The captions always dripped with smugness. "When you know, back where I belong." I forced myself not to look. But late at night, the temptation crept in, and when I gave in, it stung. Each post was like salt in a wound, public proof that Daniel had traded up while I was left behind. But here's the thing about wounds. With the right care, they heal. And in the quiet spaces between my pain, something new was forming. 3 months later, I had more clients than I'd ever imagined. Word of mouth spread. My contracts doubled. And for the first time, I had to turn projects down. I incorporated my business officially, put my name on the paperwork. My name, not ours. Mine. I worked late nights, but they weren't hollow anymore. They were filled with purpose. And with every small win, a successful pitch, a glowing review, another check in the bank, my confidence stitched itself back together. It wasn't an overnight transformation. There were still nights I sat on my couch staring at the ceiling, wondering if I'd ever trust again. But then I'd remember Daniel's smirk, his words. "You're just comfortable." And instead of breaking me, they became fuel. If being steady meant being boring to him, then so be it. Because my steadiness was turning into success. Quiet, real, undeniable success. One evening, after a long day of coding, I closed my laptop and caught my reflection in the darkened screen. For the first time in a long time, I didn't see someone discarded. I saw someone rebuilding, someone rising. And deep down, I knew karma always has a way of circling back. Daniel thought he'd traded up. He thought Tom's world was brighter, shinier, more ambitious. But I'd lived with Daniel long enough to know he wasn't chasing love. He was chasing validation. And chasing validation always leads to the same place, a crash. The only question was when. If social media was a movie, Daniel and Tom looked like the perfect co-stars. They posted photos at rooftop bars, captions dripping with ambition. Big things coming. Watch this space. They showed up at networking events in matching suits. Daniel practically glowing under Tom's shadow. To anyone scrolling by, they were unstoppable. Two men with vision, talent, and drive. But life isn't Instagram. Behind the carefully filtered images, the truth was far less glamorous. I didn't know it at first. I was too busy with my own grind, landing in clients, sketching out my first official app prototype, even hiring a part-time assistant to keep up with demand. But whispers started to reach me. Mutual friends who hadn't chosen sides would let things slip over coffee. Tom's been crashing at Daniel's place. You know he lost his last apartment. He's borrowing money left and right, says it's temporary. Honestly, Daniel's the one footing the bills now. Can you believe that each tidbit painted a clearer picture? Tom wasn't the empire builder Daniel idolized. He was broke desperate, a man spinning stories of temporary setbacks to anyone who would listen. And Daniel Maidano, who once mocked me for being too stable, was now playing the role I had once played for him. He covered Tom's expenses, let him live, rent-free, even introduced him at events as my successful partner. The irony was brutal. I had given Daniel my loyalty, my financial support, my belief in his potential, and he called it boring. Now he was doing the exact same for Tom, but convincing himself it was inspiring. I should have felt vindicated, but mostly I felt a dull ache of déjà vu. Meanwhile, my world was changing. What started as freelance side work had blossomed into a business. My app prototype caught the eye of an investor at a local startup pitch night. Within weeks, I had seed funding to refine and scale it. I moved into a modest but modern studio apartment, walls lined with whiteboards covered in ideas. It wasn't glamorous, but it was mine. Every day I was moving forward, one step, one line of code, one client at a time. And for the first time in years, I didn't feel like I was playing catch-up. But karma has perfect timing. Tom's charm wore thin. He borrowed money from Daniel just until the next deal closes. He leaned on him emotionally, unloading endless rants about his ex-wife and his failed ventures. He made promises of shared success that never materialized. And then when he finally landed a cushy investor gig that wiped away his debts, he bailed. No warning, no gratitude, just a note left on the kitchen counter. You're holding me back. I can't do this anymore. The same rejection, the same cruelty. Only now Daniel was on the receiving end. The irony was almost poetic. The man who once told me I wasn't ambitious enough had been discarded for the exact same reason. The fallout was ugly. Daniel's credit cards were maxed from covering Tom's expenses. The apartment they shared was suddenly too much for him alone. Friends who had once cheered their reunion began to pull away, embarrassed by the spectacle. At work, Daniel's performance slipped. He missed deadlines, showed up late, snapped at colleagues. The promotion he'd been bragging about slipped through his fingers. Whispers of too much drama swirling around him. The hash power couple, hashtag dried up overnight, and all those grand declarations of true love were quietly deleted. But the internet never forgets. Screenshots circulated. Tom's ex even commented on one of their old posts. Some things never change. Daniel was humiliated, exposed alone. I found out in pieces not because I sought it out, but because people couldn't resist telling me. Did you hear Tom dumped him? Daniel's a mess. Total wreck. He's been asking around if anyone has a spare room. I never said much in response. Just nodded, sipped my coffee, and changed the subject. Inside, though, a quiet storm raged. Not of anger, not even satisfaction, but of clarity. This was exactly what I had warned myself about in the sleepless nights after leaving him. Karma always circles back, and now it had without me lifting a finger. One evening, as I walked home from my office space, I passed a storefront window and caught my reflection. I looked different, not just older or more tired. Stronger, clearer. Behind me, neon lights flickered in the city dusk. Ahead of me, doors were opening. New clients, new opportunities, new life. Daniel's story was unraveling, but mine was only beginning. I smiled faintly at my reflection, whispered under my breath, "Let him drown in his choices. I'm already free." And I kept walking. It started with a text. 6 months had passed since I walked out of that apartment. I was sitting in a cafe, laptop open fresh from a successful pitch meeting, when my phone buzzed. Unknown number, Sophia. "It's me. Can we talk? I miss you." My chest tightened. For a brief moment, the old instinct stirred, the part of me conditioned to respond to. Listen, to give him the benefit of the doubt. But then I remembered the wine-stained table, the smirk on his face as he told me I was just comfortable. I deleted the message, but Daniel wasn't done. The text multiplied. At first casual, almost polite. "Hey, I know I hurt you, but things with Tom, they weren't what I thought. He used me. I realize now you were the real deal. Can we meet?" When I didn't reply, his tone shifted, desperate, pleading. "Sophia, please. You were always there for me, and I threw it away. Don't ignore me. I need to explain." And when silence met him again, the anger crept in. "Why are you punishing me? After everything, you at least owe me a conversation." The hypocrisy nearly made me laugh. I owed him nothing. I blocked the number. A week later, an email arrived. Subject line, "I'm sorry." He attached an old photo of us, me with my head on his shoulder, both of us smiling. The message read, "I know I don't deserve you, but I need you. Tom left me in ruins. Debts, heartbreak, humiliation. But you were real. I see that now. Remember how we used to plan our future? I want that back. Please call me." I stared at it for a long time, then archived it without replying. The past was not my home anymore. When direct attempts failed, he sent in reinforcements. First, a DM from his best friend Sophia. "He's changed. He's been through hell. Be a bigger person and hear him out." Then a call from his sister, someone I'd never gotten along with. "Look," she said sharply, "Daniel's a wreck, crying all the time. Can't eat, can't sleep. Tom destroyed him. But you're being cold. Everyone makes mistakes. Family sticks together. You are basically family." I took a slow breath. He made his choices. They're not mine to fix. Her voice hardened. "Wow. So you're just bitter. No wonder he said you lacked passion." Click. She hung up. The old me might have crumbled under those words, might have rushed to prove I did have passion. But the new me, I just sat in silence, heart steady. Still, Daniel wasn't finished. One evening after a workout, I walked into the gym parking lot and froze. There he was, leaning against my car, eyes, bloodshot, hair unkempt. When he saw me, he rushed forward. "Sophia, please, just 5 minutes." I gripped my keys tightly. "What do you want, Daniel?" His voice cracked. I was wrong. Tom's life was a lie. The startups, the deals, all of it. It was smoke. He used me, drained me, and dumped me. But you built something real. You were solid. You believed in me when no one else did. Please, let's start over. I can help with your business. Be the partner you deserved." I stared at him. The irony almost unbearable. My boring stability had become valuable now that his fantasy had burned to ash. I shook my head. "No." He grabbed my arm, his grip desperate. "Why, people change. I've changed. My friends say you're being stubborn. Even Mom thinks you should forgive me." The mention of his mother, who once said I wasn't ambitious enough for her son, was almost laughable. I pulled my arm free. "Daniel, you didn't value me when you had me. Now that you've lost everything, you don't get to come crawling back. That's not change. That's desperation." His expression hardened, desperation twisting into anger. "Fine, ignore me. But don't pretend you're happy. You're still single, buried in work. Pathetic." There it was, the real Daniel, the cruelty behind the charm. I unlocked my car door. "Goodbye, Daniel." And I drove off, leaving him in the rear view mirror, smaller with each passing second. That night, I sat in my apartment, laptop open, app code glowing on the screen. My phone buzzed again. Another unknown number. I didn't bother to check because for the first time I realized something powerful. I wasn't running from him anymore. I wasn't hiding or proving or explaining. I was simply choosing myself. And that choice felt like freedom. The invitation arrived months earlier, an old friend's wedding at a countryside venue. By then, my life had changed in ways I never thought possible. My app had launched its beta version and was gaining traction. Investors were circling. I'd even upgraded from my studio to a small but bright loft, whiteboards still lining the walls, but now joined by potted plants and sunlight. And I wasn't alone anymore. Her name was Elena, a fellow entrepreneur I'd met at a conference. She was sharp kind, and the first person who ever looked at my steadiness and said, "That's your strength." With her, there were no comparisons, no ghosts of past lovers, just presence, just us. So when the wedding day arrived, I went with her hand in hand. The venue was a garden draped in string lights, laughter spilling through the air. Friends I hadn't seen in years hugged me, some whispering, "You look incredible, Sophia." And then out of the corner of my eye, I saw him. Daniel. He was slumped at the bar. His suit wrinkled tie, loose eyes dull from too much alcohol. He looked nothing like the man who once strutted with Tom through parties hashtagging themselves a power couple. For a moment, I almost pied him, almost. But then he spotted me. He staggered forward, weaving through the crowd until he stood in front of me and Elena. "Sophia," he said, his voice thick with desperation. "We need to talk now." Elena squeezed my hand. Her calm presence grounded me. I nodded to her. "It's fine." I turned back to him, my voice steady. "What do you want, Daniel?" His eyes flicked to Elena, narrowing with jealousy. "Who's this?" "This is Elena," I said evenly. "My partner, my future." His face fell. "Future Sophia, please don't do this. You know we were supposed to be each other's forever." I raised an eyebrow. "Forever. You told me I was a mistake. Remember you said Tom actually achieved something and I was just comfortable." He flinched as if the words had only now cut him. "I was wrong," he whispered. "Tom ruined me, left me broke alone, humiliated. I see it now. You were the one building something real while I chased illusions. Please give me another chance. I'll make it right, I swear." The music around us softened. Or maybe it was just the way the crowd's attention shifted toward the scene unfolding. Eyes turned, whispers buzzed. Elena's hand squeezed mine again, gently reminding me this wasn't about him anymore. It was about me. So I met his gaze and spoke clearly, my voice carrying just enough to be heard by those nearby. "Daniel, you made your choice. You chose achievement over love. You chose Tom's chaos over loyalty. And when you had me, the woman who cooked for you, paid your bills, believed in you, you called me boring." Disposable, his lips trembled. "I didn't know what I had. And now you do," I said softly. "But it's too late. My achievements are real. My peace is mine. And you're just a lesson I learned the hard way." His face crumpled, tears gathering. "So that's it. You're done with me completely." I glanced at Elena, her smile steady, her presence warm. Then I looked back at him. "Yes," I said firmly. "I deserve someone who sees my worth. You deserve the consequences of your choices." I turned, slipping my arm through Elena's. "Come on, let's dance." And as we walked toward the dance floor, the murmur of whispers rose behind us. Daniel stood frozen small and broken against the glow of the wedding lights. I didn't look back because my story wasn't his anymore. It was mine. Later that night, as Elena and I swayed beneath the string lights, I realized something. I hadn't just survived him, I had transformed. From a placeholder into a whole, from discarded into unstoppable, from quiet loyalty into steady power. And in that moment I felt free, truly free. Daniel was nothing more than a footnote,